Hello everyone, welcome to another Maya 2015 tutorial. This one is going to be on the Pontoon airplane. It is inside your Maya 2015 introduction handbook. I'm just going to walk you guys through the process. I do it a little bit differently than the book, but all the same principles are there. So first go ahead and get started. First thing we do when we start any project is we create a project folder. So I'm going to go to File. I'm going to go to Project Window. And I'm going to go to New. I'm going to call this one Pontoon Airplane 2016 for the date. And I'm going to say that I want this one to be, usually I put this on my D drive, but just for convenience at the moment, I'm going to put it on the desktop. So I know that's typically a no-no, but for this purpose, I'm just going to leave it as is. It'll make it easier for me to move all my files over. So select that. So now it's going to put my project folder onto my desktop. I'll hit accept. And if I shrink down Maya, I'll see that it did create me a product folder. Let's see here. Got a bunch of extra folders in here. There it is, Pontoon Airplane 2016. Move it over here. And I will open up the source images folder because we're going to be modeling using reference images. And these reference images you can find inside your book on the disk, or if you are in my class, you can get them off your Moodle site. I'll just move all my source images into, or my reference images into my source images folder. Okay, so now those are there. I'll go ahead and close that out. I'm going to go back into Maya. Now I want to set this project so every time I go to plug in an image, Maya will be looking in this project folder for anything it's going to be plugging in. And anytime I go to render anything, it'll put it in this product folder's rendered images or movies. So I will go to File, Set Project, and I'm going to put it underneath Pontoon Airplane 2016. Go ahead and hit Set. And now anytime I go to render or look for things, it'll look inside this folder until I set it to something else. Okay, great. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create ourselves some reference images. We're going to create them from polygon planes. So we're going to go to Create, we're going to go to Polygon Primitives, and we're going to go to Plane. Now well, if nothing happens, mine did, it just had a little bit of a delay. You might have to go to Polygon Primitives and make sure interactive creation is turned off. If interactive creation is turned on, it's going to ask you to manually put in or draw your plane on the grid here, which we don't want to do. Okay, so I got my first plane here. I need to define how big this is. So on plane width is 1, for plane height is 0.406. So I can go into the inputs here and do this after the fact, or if I wanted to beforehand, if I had the book open and was checking, before I just dropped that in there, I could have gone to Create Polygon Primitives and went into the submenu, and that would have let me put those in manually. But if you just went ahead and dropped them in, just like I did, and you want to do it after the fact, you can always play in the inputs and make those changes. So I'm going to close this, and I will do it from the inputs. So here's the inputs. I have my object selected. If you don't have it selected, it'll be all black here. Select your object here. Go to Polyplane Inputs. Go to Width. I have it at 1. Height, I will put it at 0.4060. Okay. Now, this looks like it's pretty small, so it has to be a lot bigger for me to be able to work with this. So I'm just going to go ahead and scale this up so that it makes more sense for me to work with. So I'm going to activate my scale tool. If you notice I didn't hit the button over here, I just pressed R. I'm a big fan of using my hotkeys. So R is for scale, E is for rotate, W is for translate. I'll try to do my best to say that a few times as I'm working, but you won't see me going over here pushing buttons too often. So I'm going to use the center scale, or the global scale. It's this blue one here. If you click on this, or teal, this one here in the center, that'll let you scale in all axes at the same time. It's what I like to do, but beware, don't grab these ones, don't grab these ones. If you do, you'll change the shape, the width and height ratio that you'd already set. And typically don't grab the global world scale or world center here on the translate. So if I'm on translate, don't grab it right here. Here in rotate, try not to grab this one either. They're there, but they're locked down to your view plane. So if you grab it, it's going to not rotate in just X and Y or Z. I mean, it'll rotate in based off of the angle of view of your viewport. So just a word of warning there. Always grab it from the axis that is red for X, blue for Z, green for Y. So, all right, just word of warning. We're moving forward. Okay, so we need to create more than just one plane here. We need to have actually a total of 3 planes. So we can have, this will be the top view, then we'll have a side and front view. So I'm just going to duplicate this one plane here since this is the right size. I'll hit Control D, and then I just have to rotate it. So hit E for rotate. I'm going to be rotating it in the X axis, which is this red one here. I can see it says on the X axis up here, it's changing values. 90 degrees would be a perfect rotation. So I'll just go in there and enter a value of 90. Okay. Good. Now I am ready to create one last one, which will be, so we got our top view, our side view, and then we need a front view as well. So I'm just going to hit Control D one more time with this guy here, and I'm going to rotate it in this axis, so 90 degrees in the Y. Make sure you don't end up with other values popping in there. Okay. All right. So I need to make sure I'm naming everything as I'm going along. If I don't, then I could, when I go to start attaching my textures, I can end up confusing myself. So you can kind of guess if you want to, but you might end up doing, causing some problems by doing that. Because usually what I would do is just to make sure you're looking at the right one, it's just going to your 4-panel view. If you look down here, this should be your front and your side and your top view. So this one here is top, so I can go in here and say ref underscore top for the name. This one should be your side view, I believe. So let's go ahead and call this one ref side. And then this one would be ref front. Oops, missed a letter there. There we go. All right. So now I just need to jump out of this. I just press spacebar to jump out of that 4-panel view. You can click on this, but you can just hit spacebar real quickly and it'll pop you back into your 4-panel, pop you right back out. Okay. All right. So now that we have our reference images set or reference plane set up, we need to attach the textures to our reference plane. So to do that, we need to create some new shaders and attach our reference images to them, and then attach those shaders to our new objects here. So if you're new to Maya, shaders are the way that each individual object in Maya gets some kind of color texture to it. That's how that's just how it works. It's called a shading network. So we're going to jump into our hypershade here, and we can use that shading network to do our reference images. There's lots of other things you can use shaders for. Pretty much anything you're going to be rendering, you use a shader for. Okay, so the ones we use for doing reference images is a Lambert because it doesn't have any kind of specular glare to it. So we're going to create ourselves 3 new Lamberts. Now, word of warning, don't ever mess with Lambert 1 particle shader. Don't be plugging images into these guys, because everything you create in Maya gets defaultly plugged in with a Lambert 1. If you start putting in texture shaders into Lambert 1, everything you create is going to have that same texture attached to it. And it's just a pain. I mean, you're going to have to create a new Lambert anyways, but just having things that every time you create it has this texture attached to it, it starts to get annoying. So, create a new one, and actually we're going to need a total of 3, so I'm just going to click 3 times, just get all 3 of them in there, so I don't have to keep going back and doing this. Okay, so Lambert 2. Lambert 2 is going to be my top view Lambert, so I'm going to go ahead and name that. I'm going to say, I'm going to keep it Lambert at the end, but I'm going to say top ref, and this is where I'm going to actually have to pause and just kind of mention the fact that this pontoon plane is broken up into 2 different types of modeling sessions. One is going to be for the pontoon itself, and the second part is for the airplane. So we're going to do the pontoon first. So this is going to be top ref pontoon Lambert. Alright, and now we're going to attach this Lambert to our top. So there's 2 different ways you can attach a shader to an object, and I'm sure there might be another one as well, but this is the 2 that I use the most frequently. So you can select the object or objects, and then right mouse button on top of the shader you want to be selected to or attached to, and go up to assign material to selection. So now top ref pontoon is attached to our top ref plane. So now we need to go to top ref pontoon's Lambert shader here, and we need to go to its attribute editor. So on the right side here, you'll see these tabs. All these little channels here we're not interested in. We're interested in the attribute editor, which is this tab right above where it says channel box layer editor. There's one right on top here that says attribute editor. If you don't see this up here, the attribute editor is let's see here, it's this one right here. So just click on that and it'll bring it back into your tabs. Alright, so here's our attributes for this shader, and there's lots of stuff going on for attributes in here, but we're not going to be getting into that right now. We'll get into that a little bit later. The one we are mainly interested in here is the one that says color here. And we see this little checker box on the end of all these attributes, and what that allows you to do when you click on the checker box is it lets you attach in a texture. So we are looking for that image that is going to be for our top view. So we're going to go and click on this guy here. And one here, or the one that will allow us to plug in a source image, is a file texture. If we wanted to plug in some other kind of built-in texture with inside Maya, they have lots of them in here. But the one we're going to be using for reference images is going to be file. So now we can just go into File, and it'll say Image Name. You'll see this little folder over here. Now if you click on the folder, it'll start to look for your source image. And since we put all of our source images at the very beginning inside of our source images folder, inside of our project folder, they're all right here. So all I have to do is just go ahead and click on Pontoon Top. You can see a little image there. That's the one we're looking for. Go ahead and hit Open. Now it's part of it. Now it's not visible here right now, and we do want it to be visible. So we want to make sure that we activate our textures inside of our viewport. To do that, you have to go up to the top of the little viewport window, and this little group here, this little one is smooth shade all. Without this one activated, is all you'll be seeing is wireframe. So we want to make sure this one's on. And then if we go down the line a little bit further, we have this little, looks like a beach ball with checkers on it. So that, if you hover over the top of it, it says textured, and that is the one we want. That will make it to where Maya will render the source images that are plugged into the shader, the textures, if you will. Okay, so now we're looking at this guy, and now if you look at this, let's get rid of the grid too for right now. We're going to go to Show, turn grid off. This doesn't quite look right because the texture for this top view pontoon is not taking up the entire plane, so we can't actually model this. It's something that's very easy to correct. we're going to have to open up what's called the UV texture editor. The UVs need to be adjusted to where this one polygon here takes up all the texture information, and that will allow us to see this entire pontoon. So we'll open up this window here. This is the graph editor and the viewport. Essentially, it's just a split panel window which allows me to see my viewport while I work on the texture. And right now we have the graph editor, which isn't the one we want, but we can switch that by going to Panels, Panel, UV Texture Editor. Okay, zoom out a little bit. Now I want to make sure that I have this one selected, because this will make it to where all the islands are shaded. We only have one island because there's only one polygon, and now it is shaded. Now I need this one polygon to take up all the texture information that it has here. So to do that, I need to, since we're in the UV texture editor, you need to change into UV mode to adjust some of this stuff. So we're going to go to UV, and then we're going to do a marquee box around the top two corners here, and they'll turn green. And now we need to translate those ones up. So I'll hit W to translate, and I'll drag this up to the top. There we go. Now if you look over here, our reference image is now taking up all of the texture information, and you can see the pontoon its entirety. So that's good. Perfect. Okay, so now we got to do the same thing to these other two. So this one is the front shape. So let's go back into our hypershade. We're going to have to go through this process a couple times since we have all this here. So shrink this down a little bit. I'm going to go to, let's see here. That's the top one. Let's get that out of the way. Okay, Lambert 3, we're going to call this 1. Side pontoon Lambert. And after remembering that we had, well, I put pontoon on this one, but it's just there's a lot in here, so it's hard to see the pontoon afterwards. So I'm going to remove the ref off of this guy just because I want to stay consistent. Okay, go back to my side one. So now I can see in my thumbnail it says top pontoon, side pontoon. It cuts off the Lambert, but if you click on it, you can see it. Okay, so now I need to attach this one into here. So the other way that you can attach, or I'm sorry, this one's the side. Attach a Lambert to an object is to drag and drop it on there. So you can select side here, and you can middle mouse button drag it over here, and then attach it over to here. So now if you look over here, it says side pontoon Lambert. This has been attached in. Perfect. And actually, after looking at how this is set up, so my top view here, this should actually be my side. I think that I messed up a little bit, but that's okay. I can easily fix that. I'm just going to attach this one to this guy here. So now this one has the side pontoon Lambert attached to it also. You can have a Lambert shader attached to as many objects as you want. It doesn't matter. Okay, but then this one has to be my front. So I'm going to attach Lambert 4 to this one here. So now it says Lambert 4. Go ahead and name Lambert 4. We'll call that one front pontoon Lambert. Okay. Now I just need to pull in. I'll have to also rename this guy because otherwise I'm going to confuse myself. Okay. And this one is front pontoon. Just not with an S. There we go. All right. Let's go ahead and attach in our textures. So we got to go to this one is the side. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit side. Go to its attribute editor. Click on the color texture. Go to file. Go to the folder. Look for Pontoon side. Open. There it is. All right, it's nice and big too, because its UVs have not been laid out. But we can fix that. But I'm going to do the front first because I don't want to have to jump back to the UV texture editor twice. So I'm going to go to front. Go ahead and pull that one in as well. Go to file, folder, Pontoon front reference. Open. Okay. So now I have all my textures attached to these reference images. So I'll press spacebar, and that will get rid of my hyper shade. So I'm just looking at this one all by itself. But I do have to go back into my UV texture editor to adjust these reference images. So back into this little icon here with the graph editor and perspective. Go to panels, panel, UV texture editor. Okay, so now I just have to go back to UV mode, select those top two UVs, and translate that up. So it takes up all the texture information. And now I just have to select this guy here, do the same thing. Okay, so now if you go rotate around, you can see that this lines up almost perfectly. Should be pretty darn close. If they're not matching up, then you need to do a little bit of adjustments on one of them to make it to where it works. To me, the only thing that's a little bit off is the front view looks like it's not quite matching up on the left side. Change my renderer here. Okay, so now I have the option. Should I go ahead and fix this to where this lines up? I can do it one of two ways. I can change the object size, or I can change the UV size. I'm going to try just going with the object size. I'm going to go to vertex, and let's see if I can just grab these two here, move it off just a little bit so that it matches up with how this one is on this side. And it looks like on this side I also need to go just a little bit the other way. Alright. Doesn't have to be perfect. This is when you start doing reference images as guides, usually you just want to go with close, not precise. If you try going with precise, you're going to end up pulling your hair out because it's never going to be precision correct. Okay, so now we're going to move these guys off to the side. So move the front back, move the top down. I'm going to pull my grid back in. Go to show, turn grid back on. This is going to be my workspace. So the reason why I push them all apart is because when I create my objects, I don't want my reference images on top of where those objects are created and blocking my view of my creation. So when I go to my 4-panel view though, I'll turn textures on over here. But if I'm working from the top view, it doesn't look like it's below the grid. Or if I'm looking from the side view, again, it does not look like it's behind the grid. Same thing with the front. These are orthographic views, so they are lined up exactly on X and Y, Y and Z, etc. So it doesn't look like they're behind anything. But once you have your objects created here at the origin, they'll be in front of these guys, and it'll let you go ahead and start modeling it. So that's the reason why I did what I did. And you guys will see why once we start creating stuff. Alright, close this back out. Next step is I need to actually save all these guys reference layer. So I'm going to go back to my channel box layer editor. Right now I don't have any layers, so I'm going to go ahead and create one now. This little it looks like a little paper with a little light over it. It says create a new layer. Go ahead and click on that. Then double click on the new layer you just created. Now this isn't like Photoshop, it isn't like the layers you put them on top of each other. The layer on top is dominant over the ones below it. This is just organizational layering. So you can turn things off and on, make them transparent, but it doesn't affect your actual rendering. There's render layers, animation layers, but for display layers, this is just about organization on the screen. So call this one reference Pontoon. Okay, and don't make it a color. We don't need colors on right now. That is, just leave it as this blank one here. Set to visible. Say save. Oh, it tells me I can't do that. And that's because you can't put two words underneath your reference layer or your layer's name. So I'm going to save now. That's okay. Okay. So now I have a layer. It's been named. I just have to add in my reference images into that layer so that they can be turned onto reference. So just go do a little marquee box around all three of them. Go over to my reference layer, hold down right mouse button, and go down to Add Selected Objects. So now all three of these objects are now part of this reference layer, which is great. So once we are done with the reference layer, we can just turn off visibility. So this little letter V here stands for visibility. You can click it. They're now invisible. It has a couple other options in here too, which we'll use. So if you click it again, it'll say visible. Right next to it, if you click the box on the right, it'll go T for template mode. That turns the images off so you can't use or can't see anything. We don't need that one, but if you click the next one, it goes to reference. So this makes it to where they're visible, but with reference on, it makes it to where you can't actually select them, which is great. So then once we're modeling our stuff, if we accidentally click the image behind it, it won't select it, which is exactly what we want. So we'll leave V and R on, and now we are good and ready to start modeling. But right now we're at almost a half an hour, so I'm going to go ahead and break this lesson up. I'm going to go ahead and save now, and in the next lesson we'll actually start modeling. So thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next lesson.